Sure.
Wait a minute. Awesome sauce. Right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And we're going to see some more friends come and trickling. Come on, Aurora. Come on up. Just fill in wherever you like. Yeah, come on up. Well, you can give the presentation. Awesome. For those of you who don't know, my name is Brenda Goble. I am the Children's Youth and Family Director here at Midvale. And we were asked to come today to share what are our Midvale youth up to, specifically this past summer, but just as a general, what are they up to? And so I had the privilege of taking this group of young people to Denver, Colorado this summer, and we are going to share some of that experience today. As time allows, we're also going to talk about some of the serving we do here in Madison. We'll talk about our confirmation program and retreat. We'll talk about Vacation Bible School, and who knows what else we'll talk about, right? But first thing we're going to talk about is our summer trip. Mine is not, oh, it's being recorded. Great. Let's try that again. Not responding, Paul. There we go. All right, so Service Learning Camps is the name of the organization that we took our mission trip through. And so one of the reasons we chose this particular organization, come on in, friends, you can just fill in wherever you like. Come on in. We chose them is because they have sustainable ministry practices, which means that there is existing ministry happening in the cities where we go and serve. If we didn't show up in Denver this summer, all of the places we served at would continue to exist, would continue to be fine, whether we showed up there or not, right? So that's a sustainable program where we can plug in for a short-term help experience, but that still continues on. In 2019, we traveled to Toledo, Ohio with them and had a great experience. So we thought, why not? All right, so here is our group about to depart for Denver. You can see their names here, and I'll have them each introduce themselves as we go throughout the day. It was really early. Just want to qualify, that's why we look a little, maybe a little tired, huh? So our very first stop, we turned this into a little bit of a road trip. Our very first stop was at Wartburg Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa, because we want to introduce the idea that maybe someone will want to be a pastor someday, and they should all have the opportunity to walk on that ground. We also did our first devotion out of our Sticky Faith book while we were at Dubuque. Anyone have any memories of that first stop that they want to share?
That was our first bathroom stop. That's all.
Yes. So this is Andrew getting right to the important stuff. We needed a bathroom stop, and they had good ones. Anyone else have anything they want to contribute to that one?
It was like our first time actually like talking to each other because we got up at 5:30 and then we were all in the van but like not talking. So that was
right. Right. So we're all going to get out and use the bathroom. That's how I got you out of the van. And then, oh, guess what? You have to talk to each other now. And so our first devotion said, why should we go? And so they wrote in their books. So some of the things that our people shared is they were excited to experience a new place. They were excited to help others. They wanted to live in community for the week, and they wanted to grow in their relationship with God. So that's what some of you shared then that you might be shy to share now, right? So we stayed overnight at First Lutheran in Kearney. So if any of you, Kearney, Nebraska. Thank you, Paul. Anyone want to share what that experience was like? And if you want to stand up, if you say your name, if you tell a little something, that would help our crowd.
I'm Isaiah, and this night was really fun because it was when we were all just kind of getting to know each other. And I remember we arrived at the church we were going to be staying at, and we set up our beds and stuff. And then I think it was maybe Ford or someone went downstairs and found out that they had a big basement with a bunch of different stuff. So they had spike ball, they had like this gaga ball thing, and like a big hangout room. So that was super fun for us. And we were able to eat at a park outside, and the weather was super nice. And I just felt like this was a great time for us to bond and really get to know each other.
Do you have more anything there? Not this one. All right, fair enough. All right, so then part of our Sticky Faith devotion that night was sticking together in unity. So we talked about how we are part of a unified body, and being unified together, we're more open to the work of God's Spirit in us and more able to follow Christ to work through us as we serve others. So again, that was kind of the focus of that night. Then, continuing our road trip on to Denver, we stopped at a place called Golden Spike Tower in North Platte, Nebraska. Anyone want to speak to that experience?
I'm Sean, and I remember going to like the 7th floor and just getting, oh, it's right there, a really beautiful overlook of all the trains, and it was just really, it was really cool seeing how many different tracks were handled at the station, and also there was like 3 old men from like Indiana or something
Mhm.
that started talking to me and didn't let me go for the next half hour.
It's a good memory, Sean. Anyone else want to speak to this? Do you remember the details about how large the yard was? I don't remember
Yeah,
those details.
I don't remember all the details. I'm Paul, by the way. I got to go along on the trip with these and with these youth, and it is, maybe some of you have been there before, but I believe it's the largest switchyard in the country and maybe in the world as well. So it's pretty amazing. And I think we take trains for granted, but you do, like, just like Sean said, you get up and you get to look down on this, and it is just metal track everywhere. And so does anybody remember? I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of people employed at this place, where they're not only, working as switchmen and women, but also doing, train repairs and the like. So it's really kind of where the East comes to meet the West, I think, in Norris Platte. So really fantastic. And you can see from a long ways without having to get up actually all that high in Nebraska.
Thanks, Paul. All right, so our next stop was at a place called the Overland Trail Museum in Sterling, Colorado. So you'll see it was all kinds of history, and I don't know how else to describe the place. You all had a lot of fun there, so I'm sure somebody can speak to that.
My name's Clara. I think what's sort of cool about just the whole road trip in general, like the tower and like this trail museum aren't things like we would usually go to. Like if I went on a road trip with my family, we probably wouldn't stop here. But it was like fun going. Like you wouldn't think you would like it, but it was actually a lot of fun. And they had like these whole towns, and they're like walkthroughs, and like you were sort of like stepping into like the past world and stuff. Like there was an old church. We got to do sermons up there. I remember.
There's Andrew
Ford.
hanging out with Jesus.
Oh yeah, Andrew.
Yep. I think Mitchell's, was that a milking a cow kind of thing? I don't remember. It was some sort of water thing.
Yeah, got to go into old trains.
So this is all the bonding
Yeah.
experience for you all, right? Like getting to
Definitely.
know each other.
Good stuff before the whole week of work.
Exactly. And if you all have questions at any point, feel free to speak up. We're happy to address those now. Oh, did you want to say something, Sean? Yeah.
It was
Oh.
just it was a very cool historical site. Like
Yeah.
there was a classroom from the 1800s.
Yeah.
And then in the main section, they just had all sorts of different artifacts.
Mhm.
And they had this like little like native camp.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot, but it was giant. They had many tents, many people, many horses. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And just everything here. I really liked the Conoco actually in the far left, because you went in there and it was like 1950s vintage
Yeah.
style.
Very cool. All right, I didn't mean to cut you all off. Anyone else? All right, now next. All right, so we had to make a stop at the University of Colorado Boulder. Why did we have to do that, Paul?
It was another bathroom stop. Actually, it was
And
a very quick get off the road. But we also were just driving right by. And maybe the third reason is this is my alma mater. So I had to pull over there a little bit and search for a bathroom and then at least get a picture. So that was kind of a fun stop. And I think a lot of people appreciated stopping there. And then, I tried to keep my stories to a minimum, but I don't think I was probably too successful.
anyone else want to speak to University of Colorado? No? All right. So then this was the level of excitement for most of our group. The thing most had been waiting for was to go to Rocky Mountain National Park. So our first experience in the park was in the evening, and we went to the Bear Lake area. And so I am not a hiker in the group, so I took the group photo and then they didn't see me for most of the time. So I'll let you all speak to what you experienced in the park.
Yeah, I'm Andrew. Rocky Mountain was really beautiful. I remember just walking around and you could see like elk just like grazing. It was like an amazing experience. Got some amazing pictures. And I was able to walk with Ford for most of the trip, most of the hike. And it was just great to just talk and bond with the group. Honestly, it was a great experience.
Nice. Anyone else about the park specifically?
I mean, I was behind the main group for most of the time, but it was still a really nice experience. Just getting up to the final destination felt so rewarding. And I walked with Paul on the way back, and we saw an elk like 3 feet from the trail. It was really cool. Well, he was helping me try not to slip on ice on my way back. But
Nice.
Yeah.
Good leadership, Paul.
Well, I just want to say a few things, right? So this was really, really fun, not just for me, but I think everybody enjoyed this at different levels, and that was nice. You know, there's this term chomping at the bit. It completely applied to a few people who, like as Brenda said, we kind of said go, and then just did not see them until literally at the top. But I wanted to tell one story, which is actually about the next morning, where we also went for another hike in Rocky Mountain National Park. And it was really neat. It was a beautiful morning. We got up as always early. I think that's kind of what we did, right? Pretty much every morning we got up early. I think I did more complaining than these guys did. And so we decided to head off on this hike, which was a little bit literally off the beaten path. It was not a hike that lots of folks did. And again, most people just took right off. One or some of us said, hey, I'm going to hang out on this bench and wait until we get back. But Dane Nording, who's not here today, also went on this hike with us. So you have to remember, we started in Wisconsin, and the next day we went to Nebraska, and then the next day Colorado, right? So elevation was definitely kicking in and affecting a few people. And so Dane was not sure if he was going to be able to do this hike. So he and I talked it over, and we thought, let's just start, right? And we'll just go at our own pace, right? And so we did. So he and I started hiking, and he actually felt fairly well, and it was a beautiful day. And so we kind of took our time, but kept moving right along. And he was like, I think I'm kind of feeling better than I thought, which was great. Anyway, we got about some of you, I think, experienced this also, about a third of the way up. And there's this beautiful outcrop of rock where he had a nice view of the landscape. So we got there, and we, I said to Dane, let's take a selfie here. And there was an older gentleman that just happened to be there. You guys remember this? Does anybody else want to tell this, or is it okay if I tell? Okay. So they had to think similar experience, although they didn't know this until later. And he said to us, can I take your picture? Sure, that's great. So then he started talking a little bit. I don't know exactly how old he was, but I would have guessed he was probably mid to late 70s. And he'd hiked up there, and he seemed in good shape. Turns out he built that path when he was 18 years old. And it was just pretty amazing to meet him. So I'm plus 50 years at least that trail had been there. He and 5 others had done that. And you could tell that he was proud of that still. And I didn't ask him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he hikes up there pretty much every day, right? Just to really enjoy this. And he did. He said he literally had done that hike thousands of times. And it was really neat. And it was really a great experience then for Dane and I to see that. And long story short, Dane and I continued on. He started feeling better and better. Pretty soon it was me that was working hard to keep up with him. But we made it up to the top. And one of the best things that happened when we got up to the top, all these guys were up there, and they just started yelling and screaming that he made it up there. So, Dane just kind of went, whoop. So it was great. So I can't say enough, and I'll try not to say too much, but I can't say enough about how supportive this group was of each other. And for Brenda and I to see that, not only did we benefit from that, but for us to see that was just amazing. And it could have been, not saying anything, or, hey, Dane made it great, but it was the opposite, right? It was just an explosion of excitement. And so, that made me feel good too. They might have acknowledged that I made it or not. I'm not sure, but that's not the important part of the story.
I love it. Thanks for that, Paul. So we spent that night in Estes Park at Shepherd of the Mountains, and you can literally see you're in the mountain base there. That's the beautiful space that we got to stay in. We didn't actually get to worship with them because there was a Scandinavian festival happening in town, and they decided to cancel worship and let their whole congregation go celebrate. So we did our early morning hike instead. So then I do have pictures of that visitor center that you were talking, different hike. Oh yeah, I don't have any pictures of that hike. Yeah. So this is where we drove up to. Thank you for that. I don't know. Do you guys remember anything about driving up to the visitor center? shopping.
I'll just say
Yeah.
this for context. Many of you have probably been here before. This is you go up Trail Ridge Road, and this is the visitor center at the top of that. Then, so I imagine many of you have been up there.
I do remember something while driving up there. So the drive, every once in a while, you're on like the edge. We're in a big van. Paul's driving. Paul's an amazing driver, but he's also knows so much about the area that he's like trying to tell a story while driving about an area, and we're like on a super like edge right here, like one wrong move, and we're going. And I just remember Dane was in between me and Isaiah, and he did not want to look out the window. He was so out of it. And then when we got up to the tippy top, there was like, what was it, like 200 stairs, something like that. You could go up to a lookout. And I remember Isaiah was like, I'm gonna do it in under, was it your dad did it?
No, I didn't.
No. He was like, I'm gonna do it under 60 seconds, 200 stairs at an elevation of 12,000 feet. And it was just crazy. It was like pushing past the limits. Like you could not think someone would be able to go up that many stairs. But it was so much fun, and just like I think everybody went up the stairs, right?
Almost everybody.
But yeah, it was super fun, and just a different perspective and different point of view.
Something that really resonated with me was on the drive, we reached a certain point where we went above the tree line. And that was just really incredible to me, because you look down at all these trees on the mountains, and just they looked like tiny little specks, and just like thousands and thousands of them. And then also when I was deciding if I was going to run up this staircase or not, you look at it and it's kind of long, but it's not too long. You think, oh, it's not going to be too bad. But I remember I was halfway up and I was getting pretty gassed, and I reached the top and I didn't stop running, but I remember I just sit down for a while and I thought I was in good shape, but it kind of gave me a little self check. And I was sitting down and a group of people walked by and they asked me if I was okay. I was I'm okay, but and then we walked out and it was there was some snow you could see, and then in the distance we saw some I don't know if they were mountain goats or elk. They were on the mountain, so that was also a really cool sight to be able to see. And there was a billboard up there that showed it in the winter, and it just looked like an awesome landscape where everything was covered in snow and you couldn't see, all you could see was white. So it was an awesome experience to be able to do.
Love it.
My name's Ford, and I remember looking down at the 12,000 5-foot mark with Sean, and like you'd see like one big mountain, and then you'd see another one, and then you look down and you see more, and it just kept on going. So that was really awesome to see.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. So when we arrived, we got to stay at the Messiah Mountain Retreat Center. It's part of the Rocky Mountain Synod. So it's literally kind of out off the beaten path, out in the woods. And so here's some interior and exterior places of the place that we stayed. Anyone want to comment more on the retreat center itself? We stayed in bunkhouses, bunk beds. I don't know how else I'd describe the place.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple words.
Yeah,
So this is it's really neat. So for those of you that know Denver, it's just a little west, close to Morrison. I'm sure many of you have heard of Red Rocks Amphitheater. It's really close to that, actually. And so in the end, we ended up commuting back and forth, but it was pretty great, as I'm sure these guys will tell you, is, Denver is busy, right? Traffic, people, and it was like a little escape. It really was. So it was in the trees, in the mountains. There were trails through there, and then we had a beautiful cabin where we could hang out and make our food and eat. And then another one where we were able to do some sleeping. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Messiah Center later, but really nice to be able to kind of escape a little bit after our busy days.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so our first mission site that we worked with was called Brothers Redevelopment. And their mission is to help keep seniors in their home for as long as possible, and to just anything related to housing services. And so we got to go to Miss Flynn, or was it Miss Lynn? Miss Flynn. Miss Flynn's house and paint her home for her. So she was an elderly person. Let's see. I don't know if I have a picture of her. I thought I had a group picture. Oh, okay. Do I have two? Yep, I do. All right. So here we are with Miss Flynn and some of the project that we got to do. So do you all want to speak to painting the house?
Yeah, this was honestly one of my favorite days on the trip. It was a long, hot day. We were just painting the house, and honestly, it was great. No one was complaining, and it was just a great experience to just talk with people and just like paint the house. I actually got to talk with Miss Flynn too, and just like find out just about her life and like where she came from, and that was honestly just amazing to experience that.
Awesome.
Just adding on to Andrew, Miss Flynn, she was just so appreciative of our work. And I remember at one point she went to the grocery store, and when she came back, she brought us out all snacks. And it was like a small gesture of kindness, but something she didn't have to do because we were here to help her. But instead, she was coming out and offering us food for us to eat. And I also remember I was assigned some edging stuff, and I don't have a super steady hand. I'm not a very good artist, so that took me a while, but it was a fun skill to kind of improve on. And I really felt like it was awesome just to be able to paint this house and see the difference we made. It was a true physical change and something you could really see the immediate impact of.
Nice. So
I'll just say one more thing, just to highlight a person. So I'm thinking about who is not able to join us today. So Tavia Schmidt also was on the trip, and she's probably in one of these pictures. And she got stuck on the hottest side of the house for a while, and she was painting and making sure people are drinking water and maybe like pouring some water over the top of them, because as many of you will remember, when you go to high elevation, one of the most important things to do is drink a lot of water so you don't get sick. And she was painting there, and on a ladder, and I was a little nervous she was going to maybe just kind of write. And then at one point she said, "It is so hot." And I was like, "Well, why don't you go and paint on the other side of the house for a little bit?" She's like, "Nope." She was so determined to finish this one section, and she was going to get that done before she moved on somewhere else. So as Andrew said, it was a warm day, but everybody plugged in and nobody complained a lot. And then of course there's the cleanup, right? So we spent a lot of time washing brushes and paint cans. I don't know. Does anybody want to comment on what that facility looked like? Do you remember like all the brushes, all the paint cans?
There were a lot of them. There you go.
It was a lot. It was like actually pretty interesting because it's such like an important Brothers Redevelopment is such an important and broad thing. Like they do a lot for Denver, and then they all came out of this one. It was pretty small, like probably the whole building was the size of this basement, maybe, right? And everything came out of there. Like there was so much stuff. And it was just really amazing to see that so much work came from such a small place, and they're helping so many people with like not a lot of materials and resources. So that was fun to see.
I'll go back to this too. So not the best picture, but this is Mary Lorenz and Sylvie Lorenz. And those of you who don't know Sylvie, she's a student with autism. And so their family joined us for parts of this trip. They came out on their own and they participated as they could. So you'll see them pop up in some of our photos, but they don't have quite the same stories as this group and weren't able to join us today. But I do want to highlight they came with us and we're so grateful they participated how they could. Yeah, Jen. Yeah.
To the next slide.
Yeah.
Why is Claire making that face?
Because she's so happy.
Were you happy,
That's a happy
Clara?
face.
Okay.
I said smile for the camera and she did not disappoint. But now Claire's like, oh gosh. She is adorable. We're so thankful.
Brenda,
All right.
Brenda, not sure about that.
Yeah.
So I forgot the name of the guy that was leading us in painting. Was it like Daniel or something?
Yeah.
He was a young guy, but he was a really nice guy. He'd been doing this only for a couple of months, but he was a great leader and, kept everyone on track and encouraged all of us. And at the end of the day, he made me paint the side of the roof, probably because I was the tallest and I really didn't want to do that. But it helped me get over my fear of ladders and heights.
Nice.
So.
I appreciate that. Yeah, real world skills, right? Because there's at least one person in the group who'd never held a paintbrush before. I won't say who that is. Yeah, getting over fears of ladders. I love it. So on one of our fun days, we went to Bear Creek County Park. And maybe some of you want to talk about how that volleyball game kind of happened, what that was all about.
All right. So we brought a volleyball and we were playing a volleyball game just for like fun. And it was like 2v2. Then some of us took a break, went to the pool. And while they did that, we had like 5 people join in our game. And then they came back. So we had like 6-on-6. And then people just kept on joining our game. So we were like making whole teams like 20 on each side. And it was just really fun to see the community be able to play volleyball with us. Like, even though we just came here to play a game of volleyball, we got to hang out with a bunch of fun people. So
Yeah, I got to an 11-on-11 at one point.
I think I'll see if it will play for us. There's not much for audio. It's just a little visual of. Is it working? Kind of. Yeah. It was on fire. But yeah, you can just kind of see all of our group bonding, community joining in. Oh, it doesn't want to advance for me. Thank you. There we go. So back to our retreat center is one of behind or all around our retreat center. How many acres was it? Do you remember?
It wasn't that large.
25 acres, something like that, of just trails. And there needed to be some trail maintenance happening. And so that was one of our service projects, was to do that. Would you all like to speak to that experience? What it was like moving rocks, big trees? No one wants to speak to that, huh?
Well, I remember that day before we were working on the trail maintenance, who hosted Jen took us to the top of the hill where there was lots of wooden crosses that the local Boy Scouts had brought up to the top of the hill. And there was like 5 of them or so. And it was just cool to see that. And also I remember Sean and someone else fixed one of them that was broken down. And that was just something cool that I remembered to see.
Very cool.
Well, I'll just comment briefly. It was really fun to do the trail maintenance, and everybody really got into it. And our host, Jen, I think she really, really appreciated it, right? Because this is something where she had lined this up, and it was just a morning, right? This was just part of one day. And she walked around with us a little bit and said, fix these kind of things. And mostly it was erosion control. So, lining up rocks, bringing some logs down and putting rocks next to them, so that the trails didn't get washed out so much. And then she had to leave, and she came back and she walked it with her husband later. And I think it's safe to say she was pretty blown away by how much we got done and how much we accomplished there. And so, you will see in a few slides here that a lot of the service is about serving people, but certainly it's about serving in terms of creation and protecting creation as well.
I've got this video of you all working together, moving that large log.
Where I fell down the mountain?
I don't think I have the picture of that one. Oh, it doesn't want
Say it was also very helpful that we had an engineer on our team.
to. Absolutely.
So it's just all natural processes, right? So between the snow and the rain and the steep slopes, I'm sure all of you are familiar why this happens. And so everything we were trying to use, hold on, were near natural products, and nobody got too injured on this day, I don't think.
Yep.
Some backs hurt maybe at the end of the day.
Exactly. Well done. All right, now I got that. Oh, that didn't work how I wanted it to. Try again. There we go. Thank you. All right, so then sometimes we would actually have just like after the trail, we'd have a little downtime at the retreat center. And so Sylvie had a game that she taught several of our players. We had a movie night one of the nights, just some fun and games in the kitchen. I don't know, anything else you want to say about just hanging out at the retreat center? Help for it out.
I got it. So I remember we got to go to like, the local grocery store and we got to like, pick out a bunch of cereals on the church.
Mhm.
And that was super fun. And then we just like came back to the retreat center and we all just hanged out, made snacks. It was like just really fun to like chill down with people you just worked really hard with, and it was a good time.
All right. Mitchell.
Oh, my name is Mitchell. And honestly, the movie night was really fun. There was this one movie. Do you remember what it's called? The one with the locks? The lock movie? I don't remember what it was. But it was a really fun plot because there was like a dude trying to unlock a bunch of safes, but there was also there was also a zombie apocalypse happening at the same time. And that was mentioned at the beginning of the movie, and then it was never mentioned again. So I don't know. Interesting.
All right. All right. That afternoon, we had the opportunity to go to a place called Graceful. And so, yeah, oh, good. Okay, I was going to say that the idea was that you can come to this cafe and you can pay what you want for the food there, including paying nothing. So it's a service to the community that all have enough to eat. But Isaiah, if you want to speak more to that.
I thought this was a super, super cool business. And when you go inside, it just looks like a normal restaurant. There's workers who are serving you. There's tables you can sit down at. But the really interesting aspect of the cafe is you look around and you don't know who's paying and who's not. So it kind of just removes that almost like guiltiness of having to not pay. So no one knows if you're paying or if you're not. So there are regulars who come in every day and don't pay, and there are regulars who come in every day and they do pay. So I just thought it was a really neat idea just to be able to still sit together as a community and not segregate groups for them if you're paying or if you're not, and just really a nice time with the group and just a great idea for the community. And I think it really helps it out and just takes out that guiltiness of not paying.
Anyone else on Graceful? Do you have anything on Graceful you want to say? All right. So because the need is so great for food scarcity in Denver, they have some pop-up locations. So instead of having a building, they would bring a big semi out and it would essentially be a drive-through food pantry. And so do you all remember how many cars we saw go through that day? Do you remember the actual number?
Over 100. Yeah.
Well over a few hundred.
Yeah, it was a few hundred cars that you would see.
I think sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah,
think
no.
they estimated the
Yeah.
number of people served was not 10,000, but if they
Did buy it.
if they figure out families and families, but there were hundreds of cars that came through was the point. Pardon me.
And also walk-ups.
And then there were also walk-ups as well. So does somebody want to talk about it a little bit or not? I guess go ahead. I'll mention one thing and then I want to hear your story for it. Is just the number of cars that lined up early was amazing. I mean, there were hundreds of cars well before opening.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing lots of sorting, right? So we had to get there a few hours ahead of time. But it just was a real quick reminder of the stark need that there was. You got to fill in the time till this thing. Right.
We're having some technical difficulties.
It was really fun to be able to like do like a whole process and just really feel like you were doing it like all, because we started with like packaging the food and making like kits of food. Then we'd like box them up and set them in the thing, and we divide those into different stations. So we'd have a huge amount of cars just drive through and we'd like all load it up into the cars. And while we were just doing our job, we could see everyone like smile and like be so happy and thank us, which was really just fun.
Okay.
I just wanted to add on to Ford what he was saying. Initially, I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to interact with the people or not, but it was really interesting just to be able to see how many people were so thankful that we were giving them this food. There was only, I think, a select few of people. I probably could count them on my hands of how many people did not say thank you or had their windows rolled up. Almost everyone had their windows rolled down. They were saying hello. They were engaging in conversation, saying thank you, which was just really interesting to see and talk to them. And it was very nice to help all these people, but something that kind of broke, I think, all of our hearts at the end was there was probably 25 cars where we couldn't really give them much. We ran out of supplies. So we were able to give everyone something, but towards the end, we were giving these people who waited in line for 3 hours or more, maybe a couple bags of walnuts. And that was really hard to see. And you could just see like the despair in their faces, you know. So that was very hard to see, but they're even through all that, they were still saying thank you so much. And I think that's really impressive to me, because I don't know if I was in their scenario or their situation, I don't know if I would be able to be so appreciative after waiting in line for countless hours and maybe missing some work to try and come get some food just to be turned away or given a few bags of walnuts.
Jen.
My daughter told me a story that I was wondering if she could share here. The story that you helped with because you speak Spanish.
Oh, that's not this one.
That's coming up.
Thank you.
All right. So anyone else on the food bank for the Rockies? No? Okay. So another organization we got to help with was called A Precious Child. And so they have a warehouse where they collect clothing, they collect books, they collected, I don't remember all the other kinds of items. They have a retail end where they sell some of this. They also have a retail end where I think they could, the participants could come in shopping and not have to pay for it, right? So we were doing some sorting of clothing, getting it ready to go to their retail shop where the shoppers could come in. And I believe it was either pay very little or pay as you can to get new clothing. Anyone want to speak to clothing sorting or that experience? Got nothing on this one.
This one was really fun, actually. We just had like a giant bin of clothes and we just kind of had to sort by sizes. And I remember Ford made this a basketball game pretty much, just by throwing clothes across the building. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Going off of what Sean said, like working the whole week, sometimes some parts can get a little boring, some parts can get like repetitive, but finding like some fun, like Ford playing basketball, Isaiah, Dana and I, we were looking through books. So like sometimes we'd find books from our childhood, play with them a little bit. But it was just like finding those fun moments, and like sometimes when it's hard work or a little boring, but doing good work and having fun was fun.
And didn't someone find like a $20 bill in one of the books?
Oh yeah.
And then went over to the cafe that they had and treated everyone. So that was a nice gesture.
So for this one, I was partners with Paul, and we were sorting like I can't remember do you remember what we were sorting? Oh, down there. Yeah.
Clothes that didn't quite fit your.
And it was a really fun experience because I just got to talk with Paul about like a bunch of science stuff, like space. It was just a bunch of fun, and I learned a lot. So it's cool.
All right. And then we thought we couldn't go to Denver and not walk down Colfax a little bit. So we had just a little bit of walking and checking out some of the murals downtown. We didn't do it too long. It was pretty darn hot, and they were all eager to get back to the lake and cool off a little bit. But does anyone have anything they want to comment on about downtown Denver? No? Okay. So then our host, Jen, invited us to her church to have a worship service, and they were having a potluck dinner. And so this is us at Risen Lord Lutheran. And then we also did a service project with them. They collect coats year round to give out to those in need. So I have that on our next slide, us helping them sort and package up coats. So do you want to speak to any of our experience at Risen Lord? The potluck or the helping? Or the service?
I thought it was a really neat experience. Their church was in a beautiful place. You could look out, see a beautiful landscape.
Mm-hmm.
It was built of all wood, and it was a really beautiful sanctuary. And it was fun to be able to talk with these people, these members of the congregation. And then later in the service, or later in the night, we had the opportunity to help with a mini service almost. So we all got to do some readings. and such. So it was just a fun time just to be able to sit outside on the church's patio and talk with each other and the people of this church. And we had some fun connections, some people from Wisconsin originally. So it was just a neat time.
And this is a shared space. This building is shared with a Methodist church, I believe, as well. So Jen's congregation size, I think, is only about 50 people. And so we exponentially increased their numbers at a potluck and at helping with that service project. And this is the one that a lot of you have been really excited to talk about, Jefferson County Action Center. I don't know if I can remember. I mean, how would I describe Jefferson County Action Center? I'll let them describe it. Talk away. This is your Spanish time, Jen. So
I'll just start with what me and Mitchell did. We got placed in so what the way it worked is people would come into the action center, they would check in, mostly people in need, and they would all like go through this grocery store aspect, just going around grabbing all the food that they wanted and needed throughout the center. And they would bring their cart full of food and other appliances like to us. We'd weigh it and we'd bring that cart to like the outside or whatever where they would bring their car and we would load it in. And me and Mitchell were just loading in for like a couple hours. And it was honestly just a great experience to see how thankful everyone was. And it was like I don't remember one person that wasn't thankful. I was like every person, I would shake their hand and they'd always just come in with a smile. And I remember even like during the end, it started to really pour and like even started to hail, but me and Mitchell were still going strong. And like, yes, people were so grateful. That was my favorite day because it was just, I felt like we were doing such a big impact.
Another thing to add to that, for the beginning part of the day, I feel like me and Andrew had the best job, and we were flexing about that during lunch. And I think we got a comeuppance because it rained, raining and the hail, and it was a metal roof, so it was extremely loud, and we both got hit because there was like golf ball size hail, so it hurt. But
no students were injured in this trip.
Yeah, I remember they were like, there was a fan after we were done. They were putting their hair in front of the fan trying to jog. But for me and Dane and Isaiah, we were working with the people going, it was like a little mini grocery store, and we would just help them. They got a shopping cart and we would just help them go around like the store a little bit, tell them what they can get, what they can't get. And with me, Isaiah, and Dane, we have like this opportunity that we've been given to like learn Spanish. We're pretty fluent Spanish, so we were able to help out a lot of people there who have recently moved to Colorado and don't know a lot of Spanish, or I mean English, so we could help them out. And I think that was pretty impactful for me just because I've never really been anywhere outside of Wisconsin or anywhere that like I can use my Spanish or like use that in an impactful way. So I think that just like re-sparked how I can help my community by like just using things that I know. And I don't know, we got to again, like talking to everybody, like Andrew talked to Miss Flynn, Sean with the people at the tower, and just the whole week we were interacting with new people around the community in Denver. We had like conversations with them, learned about their life, they learned about our life, and just like we had so many deep conversations that like you feel like you know the person forever, and I think that is just so impactful.
Adding on to what Clara said, at the beginning of the day, we all sat down. They were going to pair us up in groups, and they asked who spoke Spanish. And Claire and Dane, they're fluent. They raised their hand. They said, we need one more person. And I know some Spanish, but I'm nowhere near fluent. So I said, okay, yeah, I can do it. I know a little bit of Spanish. So they set us all up and we're working. And my first person, they come in, and of course they're a Spanish speaker because a lot of people, they said a lot of people in Denver only speak Spanish. And some of these people talk really fast. And so it took me a few people to kind of remember my Spanish and get in the gist of it. But it was a fun challenge, and it was really interesting, and people were very patient with me. But it was really nice to be able to talk to them. And towards the end, I was feeling much more confident in my language, my Spanish speaking language. And just talking to them. And I was feeling like I was able to actually make a true connection with them. And I think I also really like the aspect of the grocery store part of it, because it kind of felt like they were actually picking out what they wanted and going through the motions of what you would normally do when you're getting food. And there was one gentleman that I think I made the deepest connection with. He was in his 20s. He was an English speaker, but we had a really nice conversation, and we related to a lot of things on the same level. As he was kind of towards my age, and that was really nice for me to just be able to talk to him, because it kind of opened my mind up to, like, I do relate to all these people as well, right? It's like I'm not like any different than any of these people. So it was a really awesome experience, and this was by far my favorite day, just because I was challenged in my language and just getting to talk to so many people, and it felt like you were making a really big impact.
So when I came there, they only allowed people 15 years and older, and I was 12. So so they paired me with my mom. It was a very like slow station. It was fun to see people's like smiles. We'd package some foods. But I remember there was 2 halves of the project that we were doing, so we got a little lunch break in between. And the second half, she came up to me and she said, "I'll let you do a bigger job." So I went with this adult, and we'd like do like all the food supply of the store. So we'd restock the whole thing. And the guy all of a sudden had to leave for a business meeting. So it was just me restocking the whole store. And I was like, wait, what? What's blue and red? Because there was different sections that was government donated and like charity donated. So I got the idea of it down, and it started going really well. But it just felt really good to have that amount of trust, like being at a 12-year-old at a 15-year-old site. So
Nice.
yeah.
Another thing I remember from this day is when I was working at the weighing area, I talked to one of like the employees there, and he like asked me like why we came all the way from Wisconsin to Denver to do all this service trip. And I remember like I didn't give him the greatest answer, but I remember we talked about it as a group, and it was just like to be able to like spread this like joy and kindness throughout the entire country and world is just like that was the main experience, and that was the point of us going out there. And I wish I had told him that, but that was the one thing I remembered from that too.
You gotta go back.
I think I'm the only one without fond memories of the place, as me and Paul spent all day sorting rotten food, and eventually it was only me because Paul had to leave for an hour and a half, and it just, I mean, it was a good experience, but I can't say it was a fun one.
So I've got to add to that a little bit. So yeah, everybody's talking about this was a wonderful, gratifying experience. And Sean and I were in the back. And so, these huge pallets would come in of food. I mean, floor to ceiling, put the gloves on, and you got to sort out what's good from what's bad. And I mean, there's hours and hours of this. And, we'd be getting down and literally right in there. I mean, and, these guys would be coming back, "Oh, we're having the best time up there. I just had this," Don and I trying to keep positive attitudes. And we finally finished this huge pallet, right? And I got to tell it, Sean, because it's the way it is. And we're like, whoo, and we turn and the forklift, another pallet. We might remember this differently. Sean rips off the glove, throws it down. He's like, "I'm out of here," right? And I'm like, "Look, you can join these guys. You can join these guys. Let's switch it up." And he's like, "Nope, I just want to keep doing this," right? And so he didn't change. And then I did. I had to leave to go run an errand. I came back, and so much had been done. I mean, Sean had just nailed so much of it while I was gone. It made my life easier too. But yeah, there are always people that are working behind the scenes a little bit, and doing some of the dirty work. And that was a day that Sean and I had. We ran into a lot of great people that were also volunteers there as well. But we weren't front and center, getting to see some of the clients that were coming in.
And what Sean actually said to me was, everyone else is having such a great time. I don't want to switch jobs because then someone else would have a less good experience. And he wanted to keep doing that for the benefit of the group. So I appreciated that about Sean's character that day. Yeah, I know. Right. And I will say Sylvie really fit in. It was a good match for her too. She got to do some sorting of bread. So that was a good match for her. And you got a big smile on her face being part of that, being part of our group that day too. Dane got a little bit sick that day. That's why Paul had to leave. So you won't see him in quite as many of those photos, and you won't see him next either, because he missed out when our group got to go to the Colorado Rockies. Anyone want to speak to that experience? It was raining a lot. I mean, you all can, it was a game delay.
Yeah, the field was completely soaked. We were probably there till like 10 p.m. or something like that. Or that's when we got back. It was late. It was a late night, but yeah, the game didn't start till like 8:30. Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see. It was like my first MLB game after they like put in the 20-second rule. So it was a lot better experience than I remembered other MLB games. But
Nice.
that's basically it.
Awesome. Just being mindful of our time, I'll kind of go to the next one. So this was another big highlight for our group. They were looking forward to going rafting on the Colorado River. So any of you want to speak to what that experience was like?
I remember we were rafting and we had to take the slow one because of me. But it was still really fun, and I gotta be like on like the front second. So I had to lean way over the boat and be like, look how cool I am. Meanwhile, I was going down the slow one as the youngest in the group. Yeah. And then there was a point where he was saying, you can hop out and swim now. So I thought he meant like I can just actually swim. I was like, I don't want to get toppled by the boat. I'm gonna swim away from the boat. And they're like, where are you going? So I was like, and then I tried to make my way back to the boat, and luckily I survived, but it was a tough time getting back on. And I did not get the priority of getting pulled up by the group, I guess.
I can talk a little bit about this one too. So even though we were in the classified as easy route, we were talking to our instructor before, and we were like, we want to go fast, right? And he was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. So he definitely, I think, pushed us more than some other groups. We were definitely winning the race, because Ford thought it was a race. But this water is fresh snowmelt, so it's 36 degrees. So we all had wetsuits on, but at some point he said we can jump out. And I didn't think it was gonna be too cold because we had a wetsuit, but when you got out, your body, it's like it just went into shock for a second, right? So you didn't like move for a second. It wasn't even cold, it was just your body was in shock. And I can't imagine what it would be like without the wetsuit. But I remember just floating in the water, and yeah, Ford was swimming away from the boat, and our instructor was yelling at him to come back, and these rapids were pulling him away. He's trying to get back, and then eventually it's hard to get back up on the boat. So Ford's hanging onto the side for a while as the boat's still moving, and then we pull him back up. But it was an awesome, thrilling experience with the group, and I think we had a lot of laughs and screams, and it was really fun. Just a great experience.
Something real fast.
Yeah.
Just like going off of like, yes, there was 2 different levels, and a lot of us wanted to go on the second level, but that would mean Ford would have to go with a different group. And then we talked about we could split, like go in 2 different rafts, 2 different times. But just another thing about this amazing group and like what it's like, such a good community, such a good friendships that you make. Like we all decided, we're like, no, we're not doing 2 groups. We're going together as one, because we're one family, one friend group. Like we're going all on the same raft. So I think that was pretty special.
I agree. And Dane and I got to play some card games back at the retreat center. So there's Dane enjoying his chill day. He didn't want to go rafting anyway, so it worked out totally fine. And then this is our departing our retreat center. Final group photo there.
It may look like Brenda and I are smiling a little bit bigger than the other, but it's the go home day, right? But I don't read into that at all.
So on our way home, we stopped at the Great Platte River Road Archway in Kearney, Nebraska. Anyone want to talk about that fun stop? We've got just a few minutes left.
So this wasn't, well, the whole thing was cool, but me and Clara, we went and we bought
I don't know what just happened there.
we went and bought a bag of like the gemstones that you go and mine from like the water, and that was a really fun experience. And then yeah, it was just really cool. Yeah.
All right. And then eating, we did so much eating together, right? So here's just a few of our shots of some of the fun places that we got to eat along the way. This was the one where y'all had the milkshakes and stuff. Anyone want to talk about eating? Tasted good, fabulous. Then we did get to spend one night in a hotel, mostly for the leaders' benefit of wanting a real bed on the way home. So this is us having fun in Lincoln, Nebraska, at an American. Anyone want to speak to that? How much you loved the hot tub after a long week? And then we had worship that Sunday morning at St. Paul's in Omaha. Anyone want to speak to what it was like to worship there? Again, just kind of being mindful of our time.
Just notice that they have screens in their church. We're thinking about those, so take some mental notes.
Yeah. All right, so it's time to wrap up our Denver portion, which I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about all the other portions. Any questions for our Denver group? Yeah, Colin.
That seemed fun.
It was totally fun. Thanks for that, Colin. Did you know that you too could go on a fun trip with Midvale next summer? You could go to New Orleans with this amazing group of people. Any other questions for our Denver group? Otherwise, we'll maybe have a quick moment to say, coming back here, that kind of inspired our youth to serve at home too. So we served 3 different times at Second Harvest Food Bank here in Madison. So here's a few photos of some of the jobs we had there. Anyone who served at Second Harvest want to talk to what you got to do that day? Ford's like, I don't remember. That was a long time ago. I actually don't. I think, was that the cheese? I don't remember what we did those days. Confirmation retreat. Wanted to share this opportunity for our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders to go to Bethel Horizons and have some high and low ropes experiences. And any of you that are here that want to speak to anything about Bethel Horizons? Colin does? Yeah.
So I don't know if this was the same one, but I remember that I think it was.
Mhm.
There was one where I didn't want to go on the high thing.
Yes.
One of the things.
Yes.
But then I think it was you who said I should, and I ended up enjoying it.
Yes. That is often me who is encouraging you, even if I won't do it myself. Funny how that works. And then many of you served at our Vacation Bible School. And this is one of our biggest ministries of the year. It's intergenerational. All of our junior high and high schoolers serve as crew leaders to all of our younger kids. We mix up our kiddos. So there's a variety of ages in each crew. We had, I don't quote me on numbers, but I want to say we had 45 to 50 kindergarten through 5th grade. And we had 23, 24, 7th through 12th grade, right? So if you can figure out those ratios, it's like a 1 to 2, right? So it was just amazing. We had all of these people who wanted to serve. Anyone want to speak quickly about Vacation Bible School in any way? It's just amazing. I don't know if I can say much. And so if there's anything else anyone wants to know about anything youth related, here's your chance. Yeah, Nancy.
Well, firstly, hearing all of you, thank you so much.
Yay.
But secondly, still hanging out in the archives, what kind of hard copy can we get for the archives?
I can print this.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
That'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. And if you have like an agenda or anything that you sent out to the kids would probably good what your schedule was for each day.
Yeah, I've got that too. Anything else? Yeah, Jen.
Claire, it's not a question. I just want to say thank you to Brenda and Paul.
Thank you.
You guys, that's amazing. And as a mom, my daughter comes home and she just has stories and she's so happy. And so thank you.
You are very
for
welcome.
taking the time.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think these people deserve a huge round of applause just for doing it. So thank you. Do you have a question? No? Okay. All right. Well, I guess you're blessed.
So next week we'll be back. So I'm thrilled to see all of you here. Please come back next week. We're going to start keying off the information about our ministry wing project and start to give you information about who we are hoping to hire to help with our fundraising activities on that and how this is really the motion of what you started in 2018 in our long-term planning, because at that time, you all identified things that were really critical to our growth and our future, which included almost everything that is in this ministry ring project. So we encourage you to come back and meet with us and hear about the project so that we can key off and get moving forward on some exciting process for our youth and for our families.
Yeah, thanks. You all did a great job.
Ollie.